Welcome to the Uncanny Lens, where we are exploring self-concept reflections in pop culture and media. I'm your co-host, Jinx.
And I'm Minx.
And today we are talking about the MGM Pictures release of Legally Blonde.
Yay!
First of all, Legally Blonde also has a sequel, Legally Blonde Red, White, and Blue.
And a musical.
There's a musical. There's also Legally Blonde 3. And then
Which is coming out, apparently. It's in production.
But then there's also one called Legally Blonde that was a 2009 show, went straight to video sort of thing. And
I never saw that.
Like Elle's cousins come over to the United States. They like moved to California from the UK.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So yeah, it's, I watched a trailer for it, and it was interesting as a hard to describe it. I don't know if it's interesting enough to watch, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh boy. IMDb describes Legally Blonde as Elle Woods, a fashionable sorority queen, is dumped by her boyfriend. She decides to follow him to law school. While she is there, she figures out that there is more to her than just looks.
Like, it's about self-discovery and like how stereotypes are not as accurate as they might seem, right? So it's like, don't judge a book by its cover kind of story.
Yeah, but I don't know that I really feel that description conveys that. Because I never, ever once got the impression ever from this movie that the character of Elle thinks that her only value is her looks. I never get that impression. And that this little summary.
Well, there is a point where she's like, well, I don't know if we're going to talk about spoilers yet, but
I mean, let's just go.
I feel like if you are listening to this, you've probably seen this movie. Yeah, right. No, it follows the formulas. It is like very much a movie of 2001. I must say that Reese Witherspoon's acting is phenomenal because it could have been so cheesy and corny in so many places. And instead it was just fun and silly. And you just loved her because she was just so lovable. This character is so lovable. She's so loving and genuine and kind, and a lot of her is like superficial. Well, there is like that edge to it because she's like from LA and she's a sorority girl and she's beautiful and she has blonde hair and she's got all these girlfriends that look exactly the same as her. Like the first scene is when they're all like going through the sorority, like getting ready for the day, and it's all these beautiful blonde bombshells. And I think there's one brunette, which is like one of her best friends. So it's like, okay, this was the stereotype of a sorority circa 2001, where people would go, MTV Spring Break was like a big thing.
PRL, yeah.
Like this is what it's bringing back for me, is like Paris Hilton, I don't know, just all that stuff. So, and then all the like high school movies that you see circa 2001 too, it's just like super cheesy. Technology is just like hilarious to me looking back at now. And so we see here kind of there's a backlash from that now. This movie could not have been made today with the cast and the stereotypes that it has because of what we're learning about representation. The gay characters in this movie are so stereotypical. And for a movie that is about breaking out of stereotypes, I was kind of sad and disappointed about that.
There was also the use of the R word.
Yes.
Referring to somebody's like mental abilities. It was actually startling to hear that, like see some of the stereotypes or whatever. It was actually a little bit startling because I do have such fondness that I remember this movie with.
Right. Well, how we've learned about as a culture what to be sensitive to. And I think that there was a lot of like making fun of different stereotypes was like a huge thing back then. And that was perfectly fine to do in like a very, I think that it was intended to be a non-threatening way, but it was actually really threatening and really just mean, And I think that humor has kind of evolved in that way too. Like we're seeing mean humor. It's just not as funny, and like stereotypical mean humor about people of certain age, race, backgrounds, skin, like sexual preference, all of these things. It's not funny anymore because it's just not true. That's not a whole person, right?
I don't know how much it was ever funny to begin with, and how much so many of us were just around these types of like people who were exhibiting these types of behaviors, right? For their own reasons, for protection. They felt unsafe or whatever, they're expressing these things. And then we kind of have to, especially if we're children in a home with someone like this, we kind of have to go along with it. So then we don't become the target that they're doing. And so a lot of times that meanness is a learned behavior. And that was so interesting because just to bring it back to the movie, that's one of the things that I noticed the most about like the difference between what they were expressing between the sorority and then Harvard, right? Where I think one of the women, Enid, actually says at some point, Elle says, I would have welcomed you into a sorority. And it's like, oh, is that like right before you would have like made fun of me and called me a dyke? And she's like, I don't use that word. And then she said something about
Vivienne.
So it was interesting seeing Elle in this situation where she was the one who was typically perceived this way, but she was on the receiving end of the meanness.
Of the bullying. Yeah.
So the few of the other characters I'd like to discuss besides Elle is Vivienne, Warner, and Luke. Sorry, what's his name in the Emmet?
Emmet, that's right. And Jennifer Coolidge's character. Oh my God, I love her so much.
Paulette,
yeah.
First of all, I just want to say, I absolutely loved that when in the opening scene, I've never caught this before, but in the opening scene is a Jane magazine with all of her other magazines like Cosmo and 17. And I just got so happy because I loved Jane magazine. It was my favorite magazine. I don't even read any other magazines. That was the only, it was YM first, or it became YM or something like that. But Jane and YM were like my magazines. So I loved seeing that magazine. It made me so happy. All the makeup, clothes, the music, everything totally transported me back. It was such a good feeling to kind of go back to being like 22.
That age. Yeah.
Yeah. Something that I'm going to talk about throughout this is that I very much relate to Elle. And I think that a really big difference between me and Elle is that she has a positive self-concept for the most part, a really healthy self-concept. And I have had a very poor self-concept. In fact, I have been ashamed of the parts of myself that Elle loved so much about herself and like would let shine bright into the world. And we experience a little bit of things, switch when she goes to the East Coast. But when we're in Southern California, like Elle is shining really bright, and there is nothing anybody can say to her to make her think that she is not worth it. She even says, everybody likes me. Like when Warner's like breaking up with her and he's saying, he needs to marry someone serious who her family is going to like. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, everybody likes me. And I just love that that's where we're starting with her self-concept, is she knows everybody likes me. Like, what are you talking about?
That's a part of who she is and like her personality platform, like where she builds her value from, though, kind of, is that everybody around her likes her. And, there's some issues with that too, right? Because she is trying to people please a lot of the time. And a lot of what we see is like her doing like her people pleasing, right? And I think she moves past that. She's like, I'm not here to try to like prove anything to you specifically. Like, now I'm ready to show myself what I can do. Now I'm ready to like show all of you. I'm done trying to make everybody happy. I just want to like prove to the world, prove to myself who I am and why I'm worthy, right?
Where do you think that moment happened for her? Do you think that moment is, because for me, I feel like it's when, I think was it Emmet who was talking to her, and he was like, what what if you're trying to be someone you are? Because she was like, I feel like I'm trying to be someone. And I think that's where the shift happened for her.
Yeah.
Because for that, and I related to this so much. She was like, I just give up. I tried. This isn't working. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to make myself miserable trying to be this other thing. You know, maybe that's just not. And I think that was where we saw that shift in her self-concept, where she remembered who the fuck she was, that she was Elle Woods, that this perception that these other people had of her is not who she is.
Right. And there's another moment, I feel like it kind of slowly transforms with like a few key moments that happen, but there's one a bit earlier where she says, I'm never going to be good enough for you, am I? When she's talking to her ex, and then she walks away and she goes to prove everyone wrong. And she's got like old MacBook in class, and she's got her little glasses, and she's like, I can be fucking serious. Look at me taking life seriously. Like,
you really embody that. Like, she's no longer just thinking she can just show up and be her charming, amazing, wonderful self. She's saying, oh, I need to take a little bit of inspired action here. And she was inspired then to go and get that computer, and to, just like she was in the beginning when she became inspired to go after her specific person anyway. So I just want to talk about, in this situation, when we're talking about this stuff in manifestation, in the manifestation community and self-concept community, in that regard to manifestation, Warner would be what is called the specific person. So it's the person that Elle is trying to manifest back into her life by taking X, Y, and Z steps. And one thing that is true about a specific person manifestation journey is that a lot of the times we are drawn to self-concept work because we want to win this person back into our lives. And we realize all along what we were doing was coming home to ourselves. I love that this movie illustrates that so very well, that this started out as a specific person journey for Elle, that she wanted to go after Warner, and she wanted to do this people pleasing that you're talking about, in becoming something that maybe she wasn't. I mean, I remember at the beginning, her parents are saying that what she does is perfectly respectable, that she's like a Hawaiian tropic, contest winner. And like, that all of these things she's doing is and her dad even says, why law school is for boring
people, boring, ugly, and serious. I loved that. I know.
She says, though, even when she's talking to her counselor, I don't need backup. I can handle anything. Yeah. And then tells her what she's going to have to do. And that's all she needs. And she goes off and she does it.
Yeah. And she gets a 179 on her LSAT, which that is like a very unrealistic score. I think the highest is like a 180. But like most people don't score more than like 165 is like a very good score. So 179 is that's like, I mean, to be fair, I'm not sure that's like an Einstein score, you know?
People believe she can do anything, though. So even if that's not unrealistic for fucking Elle Woods.
Yeah, exactly.
I comment on how during that whole montage of her training and everything that studying and everything that she went through, she had support throughout from like everybody, right? Her sorority would be like exercising and like timing her, and like everybody was very supportive of her and ready to help her achieve this thing, whether or not they agreed with why she was doing it or anything else. Right. They were like, this is what she wants to do. We're here to support this person. Yeah. And I think that says a lot about Elle's self-concept, that she believes that she is lovable. She believes that she is someone worth supporting. She believes that she is someone who everybody likes, that it is perfectly respectable to be a Hawaiian tropics. So all of these concepts that she has about herself and others, you can see how it's possibly influenced and shaped by the culture of like Southern California, and also maybe by like her parents and those other people who are around her in this culture, right? And so one of the things that I noticed is when she got to the East Coast, that the other female students around her seemed to have a poor self-concept in relation to her. They felt threatened by, or like Enid mentioned about, like, she would have been one of the girls or one of the women who might have like picked on her or, you know, bullied her or in some way harassed her. And so how much of Elle's concept of those other women was influenced by things her father said, like law school is for boring, ugly, serious people.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And did that encourage any unconscious bias in Elle's concept of other people and how they relate to her, that they may treat her differently because she's not like them?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when she gets there, I don't see much judgment coming from her. You know, like even when she's presented with an opportunity to describe Werner's new girlfriend, Vivienne, she says, well, she's not completely unfortunate looking. Like, she could use some highlights or, you know, whatever, but she's not, you know, she does say a couple things, but she has like a kind expression on her face. It's like, no, I don't hate her. I'm not like trying to make enemies here, right? But you know, even when somebody has been mean to her, she's not nasty. You don't see her get nasty. Like, she feels like she has really good ethical principles, even when, you know, she could easily have gotten a win for this case that she's on at the end, but because she will not share the alibi, because she promised that Brooke woman that she would not say what her alibi was because it was like going to cause her complete humiliation, which that is like all just, you know, so 2001 as well. Like, you know, she never tries to throw anyone under the bus for her own glory or gain, you know? She knows that she can use her smarts, and you know, it's like, we're not very good lawyers if we have to do that, right? Like, let's use our wits, let's use everything at our disposal to do the right thing. And that's where she gets a win. You know, I think that's like really a beautiful way to end the story, and that's where we get like this, you know, happy ending, right?
Right. She's respecting the other people, their autonomy. She's being kind, loving. She's being compassionate. She's being empathetic, but she's also being professional. She's doing her job. She's just really balancing a lot of different roles as, you know, I mean, you have to feel good about yourself to be able to do that and to be able to take on that sort of like pressure from other people. If you don't, it's really easy to fall into unhealthy patterns and dysfunction in relationships, I think. So yeah, let's talk about Vivienne a little bit more though. Like, let's talk about self-concept here, because one of the things that we notice is that Vivienne sort of always ends up coming off as second, like that second place, second. I mean, even when they're like, when they all win these internships to work for Callahan, there are multiple women in the group, but Callahan is only asking Vivienne to get him coffee or to get him plum sauce or whatever he asked for. So I'm interested in what Vivienne's self-concept may be, and that she, like, is that one of the reasons she felt so threatened by Elle in the beginning, is because she does feel like she's second best.
Yeah, I mean, we don't learn too much about the background of this character. We know she's like East Coast, probably comes from money, you know, has had probably kind of a rigid upbringing. And it kind of feels like she came from old money, you know? She's like the type of person that Werner was describing when he was saying, like, I need somebody serious. Yeah. I need a Jackie and not a Marilyn, you know? Yes. So, you know, we see the brown hair. We see it kind of like it's in a little bob. She wears like pretty conservative, preppy clothing. So you can, you know, I feel like you get kind of a sense of her background, or at least her upbringing, from that. We don't, you know, I think that maybe she has had situations in the past where where she's been bullied by women who are prettier or, you know, maybe more popular than her. And so her go-to reaction is that she is threatened by that, and she needs to, I don't know, like be mean in return, because that's the only behavior that she really knows is, okay, if somebody is mean to me, or if I feel threatened by someone, I need to react in an unkind way. But we see her grow. We see her grow because she only receives kindness from Elle, really. I think there's a couple times where it's like a little bit if I wanted to dress like a frigid bitch or something.
Yes. Kindness eventually won them over. And in the end, Vivienne hears the way that Warner is talking about, like, who cares if you give someone your word? So what? Who cares? And you can see in that moment that she starts questioning, like, is this the motherfucker I want to be fucking with? Because
I'm going to marry this guy? Like, it's like
his word doesn't matter. What? So what? If you give someone your word, what? Like, you can see that she's just like, what the fuck? And then I like how, okay, so you were talking about earlier when Warner said to Elle, like, you're not going to have the grades to get into the internship or whatever. And she's like, am I on glue? Like, we got into the same school. We passed the same test. Like, what are you talking about? And he did that to her throughout the entire film. He was like intentionally degrading her accomplishments to like make himself feel better. And it turned out that he's the motherfucker who got waitlisted. He's the one.
I know, right?
He's the one who actually has a really shitty self-concept. You know what I mean? The whole time, like projecting that onto Elle and saying like, oh, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. When all along he was the one who wasn't good enough, or at least that's what his self-concept is playing out. Right.
Yeah. For so long, men and people of privilege have been able to get away with anything. But I like that this movie was about the law and how we uphold the law. And this lawyer that she's working with, she says he tried to feel me up. It was so, laissez-faire. Like, it wasn't a big deal. It was like, every woman has to deal with this. Like, this is just the way men are. Like, we have to accept that that's what men do, right? And we have to accept that sometimes you need to sleep your way to the top to, like, get any place, especially in places of power. Like, women, especially beautiful women, could never have earned that, right? And so that's kind of the assumption that Vivienne has of Elle too, when she walks in on that situation and she's like, blames Elle for that, where it's very clearly not Elle's fault.
Well, I would say it's even the way that she was treated by the other women and Professor Stromwell when she arrived, right? And it wasn't until she kind of like was able to prove herself in some ways that these other people started taking her seriously. And even towards the end of this journey that Elle was going on, not the end of her law degree, but towards the end of the journey, the Professor Stromwell even comes up to her in the where she's getting her nails done and says, if you're going to let one little prick ruin your whatever she said, then you're not the woman I thought you. Okay, so you really wanted to talk about Paulette and her self-concept. And I would love to, because Paulette's probably the person I paid the least amount of attention to, even though she did have a really big like transition herself. So tell me more about like your observations and witnessing self-concept.
Well, we've got this big recreated fandom over Jennifer Coolidge lately. And I wanted to do a little bit of appreciation for this actress because she is so funny. She's such an amazing comedic actress. I just love her to death. And like her putting on her lipstick and like just she makes me laugh. Like, and so she does it so well. She's so funny. She's so funny. But her as Paulette, like, just some of my favorite moments in that movie are like the bend and snap when she like breaks that guy's nose.
She's like,
because her character is like this big, awkward woman, like, and I think she's been meant to feel a lot of her life that she's just like big, awkward, and stupid. And like, that's kind of the attitude that we got from her ex, was like, she became this small person in front of him when she like rode up and they were going to get the dog back. And she's just like not even barely raising her voice, like just making herself as small as possible, right? Until Elle comes in and is like, yeah, her lawyer.
I loved that right there, because as far as like Elle not being like a lawyer yet or anything, being so new at all of this, but just embodying that energy, and then like being and just owning it and doing what they did, that in turn inspired
to be big and to like be bold in her bigness, right? Like she could do the bend, but like the snap is like really where you gotta like put your energy. She like is so powerful with that snap that she like breaks this dude's nose because she's so good at it. Like, I mean, that's what I saw. I mean, you do see that clumsiness, but like that if she's a lovable character, she has like lovable quirkiness to her, you know? And you see that like she's rewarded for that quirky, fun self that she is at the end, because she like gets this hot UPS dude, even though she broke his nose, right? But
I mean,
anyway,
even aside from that, she ends up having this new friend and a new supportive community, because I'm assuming she becomes a part of Elle's community at that point.
Yeah.
I got this feeling, yes, that she didn't maybe have a lot of friends, that she was sort of maybe treated like she was in the way a lot and things like that. Like that she just wasn't.
Well, and she was the help, you know, like she does nails for a living. Like she's probably treated like the help, you know, like that's the best way to describe it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like a blue collar type worker, right? Whereas Elle comes from all this money and privilege, and Paulette probably doesn't, she doesn't have probably a formal education. She, went to beauty school, and that's a different tier, at least, of unfortunately what our society looks like.
Which is interesting, because that's the type of career that now is very much celebrated and glorified on like social media, right? Like nail art and hair art and things like
totally.
that. When this movie was made, it was a completely different like vibe. Like you were kind of considered a loser if you did hair, or if you were doing
to go to beauty school.
You quote unquote just did nails. But no, you're adding to the beauty in the world. You're making people feel good about themselves. You're creating in another person's self-concept when you're an artist. Like it's ridiculous.
And you're a therapist. Do you know how many like people come and bitch to their it's like you're like doing self-help. It's like that is actual self-help work. And I love her character. I just love her character. I love what it brings to the story. I think that
job, even though it's not like seen that way, right? It's not considered like a typical type of healing profession. I really think that is. I mean, I really think it is. It's a service that I personally don't get my nails done. I don't like other
people either. I just don't have time or money or energy to do that. And I always muck them up because I'm in the dirt gardening. Like I don't.
Right. That's the thing is, so I will give myself manicures, right? And I do enjoy those. Like I enjoy putting nail polish on and stuff. And so it reminds me of when Elle was like, she had that giant ring on her bony, unpolished finger. Polished right now. But so I love to put them on, but I know like we're going to do a photo shoot this weekend, right? And so I'm like, I want to put it on right before our photo shoot. I don't want to have to redo them again because I don't have time. I don't have time to sit around.
It's a lot of maintenance. It's a lot of maintenance. And it's interesting in different cultures how like important nails are and that like beauty standard. And I gotta say, I dated a Russian man while I was living in Russia. And when his mother met me and saw my fingernails, she was like so horrified and grossed out by the fact that I didn't polish my nails and then I had like a little dirt underneath my fingers. She's like, who is this peasant?
It's a very classist type of thing, right? Like I think people are judged by whether or not, if you are able to have nails, you're probably not like digging in the dirt. You're probably not picking vegetables. You're probably not, pulling fruit off of a tree. I mean, maybe I personally would find it difficult to do this. I find it fucking difficult to type on a computer or on my phone if my fingernails are longer than they are.
It's so difficult. Yeah.
Short because I also like to play ukulele sometimes, and if my nails are long, it just gets in the way.
Yeah.
What I like about not only Paulette's self-concept journey, but also Elle's, is in the end, we ultimately see them manifest what they were working towards when we first are introduced to them. So, and for Elle, that's multiple levels. We see her accomplish pretty much everything she wants to do, including getting her specific person, Warner, back, because he comes up to her and says the words that she's been waiting for him to say. And she has done so much work on herself at that point that she's like, you're not good enough for me. Like, this
I don't need you. Like, yeah, you're not the person that I thought you were.
Yeah, but thank you. Like, I'm so glad that you finally realized it too.
Thanks for seeing my awesomeness.
Yeah. And then for that to lead to her friendship with Vivienne and being like this really great thing that it says they became best friends, at the end.
Yeah.
But then also to see Elle finish out her law degree and be like, whatever speaker. I don't know if she was graduated with honors or whatever she did.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we see Paulette. And Paulette is not only with the UPS guy, but they are expecting
a baby. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so lovely. It's, it's that quintessential, like, happy ending of a movie, right? Like the fairy tale ending, right? And then she's getting proposed to that night, she doesn't know, but like, that's the very beginning of the movie was like, okay. And it opens up with this song. And then it closes with the same song. And it's like the best day of, I can't remember the lyrics, but I'm certainly not going to sing them. Nobody wants to hear that.
But I want to say something else real quick about Paulette too. And then I also want to say something else about the getting proposed to. One of the things that I noticed about Paulette throughout is Paulette was kind of a weirdo, right? And I think that's what drew her and Elle together. Is everybody else was like dark colors, hardly any makeup, whatever. And Paulette was kind of like Elle in that they were bright colors. They had like their own hairstyle, their own unique makeup and things like that they had going on. And so I want to just point out that both of them really just manifested their own self-concept by being true to themselves. I just really want to point out that is why I believe. I mean, I know it's a script. I get that, but our storytelling is about us, right? This is traumatized, but it's about us. Okay, and then what I want to say about the marriage proposal thing, that it really actually annoyed me that they decided to put that in the movie, because I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Really? Like, way to steal her thunder. She just graduates from school, and it's like,
yeah.
And then he's going to
come and that has to be the happy ending for every woman is like this. But that was still 2001. That was like the message of the time. I don't think that there was, you didn't see very many, like, that wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, and her and Emmet dated and then they realized that they weren't great for each other. She was like just, I am an independent woman and I don't need a man to, like, that couldn't have been. I mean, it just, that you didn't see movies like that. Like, that wasn't a part of the narrative of a happy ending.
Right.
In 2001.
They had to do that to give it the wrap up. I mean, and who knew if they were going to make a part 2 also when they needed to for us. I get it. It's just, I wish they would have said going to propose to her next week or something like that instead of that same week. But maybe Legally Blonde 3 is going to be that they all realize that men are not who they want to be with. And then Elle and Vivienne like get together, and that's going to be what Legally Blonde. Which, hey, do you know that last night is the first time it dawned on me that Selma Blair and Reese Witherspoon were in another movie together.
Cruel Intentions, of course.
Like, I don't know why I've seen both of those movies at least a dozen times.
You didn't oh my gosh. Yeah, no. They have a great, like, on-screen friend chemistry, or, like, yeah. And it was also like they were big stars back in that time. So it makes perfect sense. But no.
Let's see here. Is there anything else that you would like to add about the show? I mean, was there anything that you noticed about any of the resources that any of our characters had available to them that they misused or that they utilized correctly. Is there any final thoughts that you have?
I think that what we need to take, like, a big takeaway for me is that, okay, we see in these movies, in these TV shows, the kindness that we see from these well-developed characters, like the heroes, right? So they're being kind, even though people are not being kind to them, right? They are, and in the past, like we've said, okay, just kill them with kindness. That's not a great term, right? But it's like fighting evil with joy and with love. Mm-hmm. Maybe give yourself that challenge this week. Like, if you come up against somebody that is, a loved one, a stranger, somebody honks at you when you're driving, like, just maybe give them a big hug in your mind, or a physical hug, or just say, like, I love you, or just some sort of gratitude, even if that's not exactly where you're at right then. Just see what those words feel like, right? See what that reaction feels like, instead of the reactive tendency that we all have. Protect yourself physically, but try a different approach to protecting yourself emotionally. And I think that when we can all, instead of reactively fighting against one another, just embrace those threats, those perceived threats, as something that somebody is going through, and give them love instead of hate, right? And I think that's where we can all draw a little lesson from. And I think that's, a good way to just kind of move forward in our week. Like, try to do that more than you do the other stuff. Try to give more love than you give pain,
Don't just let it extend to, like, the people outside of you. Like, do it for yourself, right? Because ultimately we're talking about our self-concept, and we want to be guiding, encouraging, motivating, inspiring others to work on their self-concept. So if you're in a place where something has happened and somebody is being mean or honking, or, can you look in your own self-concept and say, is there something going on with inside of me right now that's attracting? Is there something that needs to be adjusted about my self-concept? Is there something, what else could be going on? Yeah. And then to listen to your own self-talk. Are you able to be there for yourself? Are you able to be kind and loving to yourself? Or are you beating
compassionate?
Everybody else is beating you up. Like, figure. And hopefully, I mean, if you are experiencing any type of physical threats or violence, please seek immediate help in those situations. Those are not something we're here to talk about. But
no.
If you are experiencing something where you're noticing that, though it doesn't feel good, maybe to express gratitude or feel any of that, find the technique that Minx has mentioned as far as extending this love, compassion, empathy, doing it to yourself as well in that moment, and then seeing how that feels in your body. How does it feel to treat that other person that way in your body? And then how does it feel to treat yourself that way in your body, and listen to what that's saying? Because if it doesn't feel good, that is something that you need to look into further.
Yeah.
And there are so many other things that we can do to help you explore that further. That's where we invite you to connect with us. Check out our website, sign up for any events or courses that we're offering. Make sure that you become a member of our membership. And as far as this podcast is concerned, please share this podcast, subscribe, and leave wonderful reviews for us as you're listening and learning about yourself and going on your own self-concept journey.
Yay!
I really appreciate you going on this exploration of self-concept with us. Today, we were talking about Legally Blonde, and we hope that you'll share your thoughts. Anything that came up for you as you listened to this episode and you started reflecting on the movie, if you've seen it. And then if you have any future topics or anything that you would like to see us talk about, make sure that you suggest those for us as well.
Thanks.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.